Well, good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Sunday Night Alive every Sunday evening at 5 p.m. on Facebook Live. My name is Reverend Denise Schubert, and I am the founder and director of A Life of Spiritual Power. We exist to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, to come to actually recover from life, which is our topic tonight. Our topic tonight is time to recover from life. We come together really to explore practical and positive spiritual ideas, ways of practicing, so that we can step out of the confusion and out of the worry and fear and lack that is so prevalent in our society today. So again, I just welcome you. I'm going to speak a blessing for our time together. And then we'll just take a deep dive in. I hope your weekend has been good. We're good here in North Fort Myers. We're in summer, and we're in the rainy summer season. So we have a little rain outside again today, but no thunder and lightning. So our connection should be awesome. All right, so let's just take a moment. I invite you to take a moment with me as we bless our time together. To bless something is to call it sacred. And what I know is that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, and every moment is sacred. Every thought is sacred. No matter what's going on in the world, that we live in a spiritual atmosphere. And so it is from that place that I know that we are connected one to another. We're connected to all life everywhere, that we have the opportunity in every moment to see love, to see peace, and to allow it to express itself to us and through us and as us. And so I know that this evening is uplifting, inspiring, healing, comforting, whatever every listener needs to acquire for themselves on their spiritual journey. Let it be here for them tonight. And so for this and so much more, we give thanks. We let this be together, and we say, and so it is. So here's my particular take. I've been a minister now for about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer, but no, about 20 years. I spent much of that time in addiction recovery, working with people, primarily from the standpoint that recovery requires a spiritual awakening, that true recovery can't really happen without it. It can't really happen without it. And spirituality, by the way, does not mean God necessarily. It does not mean any particular religion in any way. It means finding that deeper meaning of who we are, finding the deeper identification, not just from life. Now, nobody chooses suffering or addiction as a path in life, right? So it is something we have to recover from. It's not something that's going to go away. Now, recovery, I looked up the definition. I kind of love the definitions. One is recovery is a return to a normal state of mind. Now, I personally have experience with addiction. I smoked cigarettes for 30 years as an emotional smoker, as an addiction. I was not a casual smoker, and I also I quit smoking in 1995 while I was on my spiritual journey. And I'm going to tell you that one of the qualities of spirituality as a methodology for recovery is it doesn't leave you longing. It doesn't leave you suffering because I don't suffer because I don't smoke. To understand that I quit smoking and I'm free from the reasons I smoked. So smoking becomes it wouldn't even be interesting, though it just wouldn't even be interesting. So to quit drinking and to be recovered is to be happy not drinking. And a lot of recovery programs and a lot of recovered people aren't happy not doing their thing. They just don't do it, which is really not not the highest and best way to live. It's like a cat and you're on your holding on for dear life. So the first definition is a return to a normal state of mind. And I would definitely say that when you're in the throes of an addiction, you are not in a normal state of mind, right? That you are not aware of how wondrous you are, how beautiful you are, how great life is. That it's just not that. So restoration to a normal state of mind is good, but I really like the next one, which is the action or process of regaining possession of something lost or stolen. Now, I would say that we have to recover from life because what was lost or stolen from us is our authentic self, our essence, our God self, our spiritual self, our pure self, our innocent self, our amazing self, because life leads us to forgetting that. Life leads us to not knowing that. So I was finding research for tonight, and I was reading Ernest Holmes' book. He's got a great little book, two great little books. One's called This Thing Called Life, and another one is This Thing Called You. They're both very wonderful primers into the science of mind, philosophy, faith, and way of life, if you're looking for one. Anyway, he wrote, in 1943, he wrote in his book, This Thing Called Life. I'm going to read it to you. He says, "Lost in the canyons of disillusionment, where the trails run out and stop against granite barriers that wall us in, we cry out, 'Why hast thou forsaken me?' When war devastates the land, and trembling we stand at the mouth of hell, listening to the screaming of airplanes, the wailing of the wounded, and the terrors of headline, we cry out, 'Why hast thou forsaken me?'" Now, I liked this because in 1943, the world was in the middle of World War II. And obviously, people were devastated. People were so worried. People were afraid of death. They were afraid of the enemy. They were afraid. There was just so much fear, worry, and doubt. And human beings, when we are not connected to the spiritual component of life, when we are disconnected, it privately and globally, you are in a war zone. And even though World War II, the world is always in a kerfuffle, always. I mean, if it's not World War II, it's Vietnam. If it's not Vietnam, it's a pandemic. So the only way out of the mess, and by the way, you're not going to change the world, right? Is everybody clear about that? There's not too much. The world's going to continue doing what the world does, always. So the question is, how do we live in a world that's constantly changing? How do we do our part to make it better? And how do we find peace and happiness, equilibrium, safety, and calm in the middle of what's going on in the world? So the only way out of the mess, as far as I know, and as far as I'm concerned, is to find our spiritual place in the universe and to live from that place. And the willingness, the recovery of life, the recovery from life, requires that we come out of the mesmerism of the conditioned mind, or of the conditioned life. Now, this idea of conditioned mind and unconditioned mind is a Buddhist idea. And it purely just means that when we popped out, we were unconditioned. Now we're going to set aside the idea that maybe, just maybe, there's some bringing in we do when we come. But for the most part, we're a blank slate. We don't speak English. We don't speak Italian. We don't know who's good. We don't know which political party is right. We're innocent and we're pure. So what happens through the process of living is we get conditioned, right? So we get told who's right, who's wrong, what's good, what's bad, who to vote for, what to do for a living. Like doctors and lawyers are good, right? Being an artist or a painter or gay is not good. Or whatever it is, whatever your parents, your grandparents, your teachers told you, That is our conditioning. And we hit adulthood, for the most part, really believing that all of that is true and really believing that we are right about it. And it hides from us. The problem is it hides from us our authentic self. It hides from us who we really are. So we end up walking through life inauthentically, which is incredibly painful. And it's so painful, in fact, that most people need to recover not only from life, but from some substance or activity. It's not just alcohol and drugs. It's gambling, sex, the internet, negativity, shopping, eating, drinking. It's so many things, because we do these things. We do these things because we kind of are in a space of hopelessness, or kind of in a space of suffering from our own inauthenticity. It's a very painful place to be. So we cover it up, we push it down, we suppress it. Now, Don Miguel Ruiz, in his book, The Four Agreements, he called this the domestication process of humans. And what he said is that the domestication process of humans renders us living in a dream that we think is real. And the way out of the dream is to wake up. The way out of the dream is to awaken and see things as they really are. So, so let me forward this. Now, when we're living in that space of our inauthentic self, when we're living in the space of reacting to and being at the effect of the world, whether it's World War II or a pandemic or politics or the news, whatever it is, there is this kind of existential angst. And existential angst means relating to human existence. And angst is actually a German word that means fear, but it depicts this experience of dread or anxiety. So I would say, again, that most people have some existential angst if they are living purely as a human being, unaware of a deeper reality, a greater reality, a kind of oneness, connection, and unity that we all share, that is there. We just can't see it when we can't see it. So the recovery from life is really just recovering from the small self to the large self, capital L, small L to large L. And by the way, it's not anything magical. It's just simply an awakening. It's simply a wanting to see, wanting to be, wanting to discover, being curious. You know, many wise people have talked to us about such things. Socrates, well, the Buddha was very wise. The Buddha said things like, we are what we think. All that arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. And this begins to point to how things happen around here. It points to what Ernest Holmes meant when he said, change your thinking, change your life. We have to question what we think. We have to get control of our thinking, because our thinking is creative. The Buddha also said, doubt everything, find your own light, question everything. And in fact, even Miguel Ruiz in his book, his first sentence was, you have to throw out everything you think you know that you've ever learned. You just have to throw it out. So Socrates said many wise things. He's one of my favorites. He said, humans are taught what to think. We have to teach ourselves how to think. He also said one of my favorites, which is, an unexamined life is not worth living. He said, also, if you want to be wrong, follow the masses. And to find yourself, think for yourself. So since nobody chooses suffering, understand, nobody chooses a life of addiction. Addiction, self-loathing, self-destruction, the destruction of others, violence, all of these things are not viewed as a choice. We don't choose them. Nobody chooses them. They are a reaction to the loss of the authentic self, the reaction to the the suppression of inherent goodness. In fact, there's a whole stream of thought that says that those who recover from serious addictions, or those with serious addictions, are the lucky ones. They're the lucky ones because true addiction knocks you face down in the mud ultimately. And so those who are addicted to the really serious substances and things, they're ultimately forced to say, is this all there is? What else? What can I do? Help me. Many of us we don't have that. So we just kind of float through life with this mediocreness, and don't question that we need to recover from life. But we do, whether we're face down in the mud because of beer, or whether we're simply floating through life a little bit depressed with existential angst, because that is not how we are not made for that. We are made for glory. We're made to shine. We're made to have fun. We're made to be happy. That truly, my wake up call when I was 45, and I just can't. I am so grateful to my teachers. So grateful, because I can't even imagine what the last 25 years would have been like without my opening my eyes. Right? Because I had a family just like everyone else has. They had troubles just like everyone else has. I was a mess. I was a hot mess, like most people are. Really silly. I often laugh because I think I got married the first time. I don't even remember why I got married. I think just because they asked me. I had jobs just because I had jobs. There was no volition, no vision, no inspiration, no intention. It was like being blown by the wind from here to there, and never really happy. And true happiness is possible. Joy is possible. So I highly recommend it. So what does it take? What does recovering from life involve? Because you could be sitting here, you could be a person right now who's in an active addiction to a substance, or you could be a person who just has existential angst and feeling like the world's gone to hell in a handbasket, and why bother? So there is some things involved. We'll talk in a minute about belief. Like, one is you have to believe. You have to create in your heart and in your mind a space for possibility, a little tiny space. Is it possible for me to be happy? Is it possible for me to live a life I love? Is it possible for me to be my real self without pretending I'm someone else? The answer is yes, 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 and yes. So you have to believe in something good. You have to believe in more. You have to believe it's possible, and you have to want it. I don't remember who said this. I think it was Meister Eckhart who said, you have to want to know God more than you want anything for it to happen, right? You have to want it. You have to, in my view, you have to trust in the mental laws and principles, the creative process that we are all using to architect and design our own lives. We talked about this several weeks ago. You can go back in the videos. We talked about the 7 laws, mental laws that we use every day. Law of cause and effect, the law of mental equivalence, the law of prosperity, the law of giving and receiving. These are real, and we can use them. We can use them to create a life we love just as easily as we can use them to create a life we hate. So why not learn about them? It's like discovering electricity and figuring out that you can use it to burn down your house or light it with a light bulb. We don't want to burn down our houses. So trusting in these mental laws and using them. Believing that there is a power for good in this universe by whatever name you wish to call it, and that the universe itself is for you and not against you. That you may believe, based on your domestication and conditioning, that this is not a friendly universe. And I think it was Einstein who said that every human being must ask a crucial question at some point in their life to ascertain what direction their life is going to go in. Do I live in a friendly universe, or do I not? And however you answer that question is going to have everything to do with what shows up for you. So believe that the universe is conspiring for your greater good. Open to possibility, optimism, and positivity. And of course, you have to release the past. You have to let it be. Not easier said than done, I understand, but it's part of the process of spiritual awakening is to get past your mom and dad, get past the world you lived in. And I realize that for some people, terrible things were done and said, and it's really, I've also kind of discovered that if you took all 7 billion people, you can divide all of our woes and troubles into about 7 categories, abandonment, abuse, neglect, indifference, right? There's only like 7. So you're not alone. There are a lot of children who were abused, a lot of children who were treated with indifference by their parents. And you have one flavor and I had one flavor, and all of us have to get over it. I tell parents sometimes that no matter how good they are, no matter how good parents are, they will at some moment, their children will have to go to therapy to get over them. So how do you know if you've recovered? How do you know if you have recovered from life? Well, 1, you're no longer haunted by the past. That's number 1. You feel grateful. You feel grateful for your past. You feel your life will be one hallmarked by gratitude. You will, in general, be happy, no matter what's going on in the world. That you will have an overall feeling tone of happiness. You'll have optimism, positivity, and positive expectancy. You'll expect good things to happen, not bad things to happen. People who are in existential angst are, we're looking for trouble, looking for the other shoe to drop. People who are aware of their connection to the all good, connection to the one life, connection to each other, they expect good things to happen. They do. And good things do happen. We'll talk about why in a minute. And obviously, hope, faith, and generosity are hallmarks of standing in your authentic self-expression. So Michael Beckwith says, transformation occurs when identification with the ego self is dropped through a conscious realization of the authentic self. So conscious realization means thinking for yourself. Conscious is juxtaposed. The juxtaposition of conscious is unconscious or subconscious. And prior to recovering from life, prior to the waking up process, mostly we are being driven by unconscious motivations, not conscious ones. We're not really thinking things through. We're not directing. We're not being willful. We're not choosing. So a conscious realization implies that something within us has been snapped into place, and we can now choose. We now think things through. So recovery has much to do with taking responsibility for your own life, taking responsibility for your thoughts and your attitudes and beliefs and your actions so that you can create your now and your future. It means that we have to abandon being victimized by the world. We're all victimized by the world. It's why we have to recover. It's why we have to wake up. It's why we have to step into our power, which is not human power. We're not talking about human power. Human power is not human power. Just look at our powerful people in the world. They're not being powerful. They're being children, right? They're being teenagers who never grew up. They're being something, and I'm not pointing anyone out. I'm talking about people who are stuck in human power are not really powerful. I'm talking about spiritual power, which is power of the heart. It's power of love. It's the power of creativity. It's the power of conscious design. So one idea that we have to kind of wrap our arms around is we have to stop thinking about God as the master problem solver. Because if you think God cannot say, oh, look at Denise, she's suffering. She's addicted to cigarettes. I think I better come down and help. There's no God like that. And it doesn't mean that help is not available ever. It never means that, because help is always available. But there's something about life where we have to turn towards it. We have to ask. We have to want. We have to approach. And when you approach, there's a beautiful, I think it's a Zen saying that says, if you take one step towards God, God will take 10 steps towards you. There's another jump and the net will appear, that there's something we have to do. So in addition to just accepting that change is possible, Ernest Holmes, also in this book, talked about belief. And he says the whole mystery and meaning of the teachings of Jesus is bound up in one word: believe. And for those of you who know, I'm a spiritual person, not a religious one, but Jesus was a master metaphysician. He taught us everything. He taught us everything we need to know to live an architected and designed loving life. Love, forgiveness. And one of the most important is this: it is done unto you as you believe. It is done unto you as you believe. William James said, believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create that fact, right? Believe that your life is worth living, and your belief itself will begin to move molecules around. So Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. So this belief thing is important, because if you believe life is hard, life is going to be hard. If you believe that life is easy, life is going to be easy. And I know that sounds crazy, because we have evidence that says life is hard, but we don't. Evidence is part of a manifestation process that you participate with. So you might just ask yourself, what do I believe and why do I believe it? Like, bring some critical thinking to yourself. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, we have to stand guard. We have to stand guard at the portal of our minds. You have to stand guard at the portal of your own mind. And what that means is you can't you have to watch what comes in and watch what goes out, right? Because if you're around too much negativity, criticism, criticalness, fighting, people thinking that life is terrible, it begins to drag you down, right? It begins to knock you off your center. So we have to not let it in. I was talking today with Reverend Mark Anthony Lord at the Unity in Naples. And we were talking about sometimes you just have to take a vacation from the news, or you just have to take a vacation from the people who are dragging you down. Even though you love them, you have to just create some distance, because if you don't take care of your own consciousness, who else is going to take care of it? So I absolutely love this next quote, and you have to kind of wrap your head around it a little bit. But it's Eric Butterworth. He was a Unity minister, and he said, seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. You see things not as they are, but as you are. Whew. I could have done a whole half hour just on this quote. So seeing is not believing. He's talking about how what we see is unique to us, that not everyone sees what we see. And your seeing is going to be influenced by your belief system. It's going to be influenced by your attitudes. It's going to be influenced by your domestication, your conditioning. That if you have 10 people look at one thing, if you had 10 people all who get fired from their job, or you can even use a real example, you get 10 people who all get stay-at-home orders because of a pandemic, all 10 people will have a different response to that. Like, they will have a different attitude about it, different feeling about it. So he's saying here that seeing is, you're not looking at something that exists in reality in the world. You're looking at an interpretation of something that's happening in the world. Something's definitely happening, but it's you're the one interpreting what's happening. So he's saying believing is seeing. You see things not as they really are, but as you really are. So this, again, it just points to how powerful we are, the role that we have in the co-creation of our world, personally and globally, and how you and I must awaken out of the dream of separation and out of the dream of victimhood, so that we can recover from this small L life in order to be more authentic and more powerful beings. Anyway, that's what I want to do, and I want you to do it too, because The belief in false ideas we have learned, the belief systems we have learned about us, about the world, are the source of all of our suffering, our self-loathing, the source of all war, abuse, addiction, disease, depression, and violence of all types. You know, when you have a conscious realization of yourself, right? That you are worthy, you are lovable, you are magnificent, you are powerful. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to be addicted. You don't have to be sad. You don't have to be anxious. When you wake up to that, which is the recovery from life, you will find yourself existing in life as a spiritual entity, which is very different than purely a human entity. You will find yourself living in a world which you will discover is sourced and undergirded and motivated by a spiritual, something. I don't know. It's like last week we talked about the wave and the ocean and the wave. It's like the air we breathe. We are living and moving and having our beingness in something sacred and divine. You can call it God, you can call it nature, you can call it quantum physics. It doesn't really matter what you call it. But when people live in that way, the behaviors change, attitudes change, priorities change, actions change. A person who is awakened would never, ever intentionally harm, kill another person or an animal. They would never abuse themselves. They would never move into self-destruction mode. You know, when I quit smoking, I was driving. I lived in Los Angeles and attending the Agape International Spiritual Center. And I was driving to the airport. And I was in my spiritual studies. I think it was like in my third year taking classes. And I was smoking, and I smoked a lot. I smoked when I was sad. I smoked when I was mad. I smoked when I was bored. I smoked when I was upset. I smoked when I was happy. I smoked after, I just smoked all the time. That's not a good thing, because rather than feel happy, sad, or mad, I smoked. So I didn't really get to feel all those things for a long time. I was like a little volcano for a few months. But why I stopped is because I was listening to some spiritual show, radio show. There was a young Hispanic preacher, and he was preaching something about your body is a holy temple. And something in me said, Denise, you either love life or you don't love life. You're going to live in life or you're going to kill yourself smoking. It's like if you're going to walk your walk and talk your talk, if you're going to be congruent with your soul, you cannot do this to yourself, right? It has to go. So, and it just went. So the recovery from addiction, the recovery from life requires a spiritual solution. That's just what I'm saying. So, so William James, I'll close with this quote. William James says again, I will call this higher part of the universe by the name of God. And again, if you have a God button that you don't like that word or conjures up something bad for you, use another word. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you acknowledge that something not us, something not human, created everything, that you did not make your own body. I mean, just the human body itself, it's like miraculous. Animals, all the varieties of animals, photosynthesis, thermodynamics, sunsets, sunrises, sunsets, rotation of planets, the amazing love that heals this universe. I mean, I don't know what to call it really, but I feel it inside. I know that I'm a part of it. I know that I'm a wave on that ocean. So call it whatever you want. Just acknowledge that it's there, because it will provide you with the insight and the guidance and the direction you need to live a fuller life and to recover from life. It will give you that. So we could be here all night if I dissect every word. He says, I will call this higher part of the universe by the name of God. We and God have business with each other, and in opening ourselves to its influence, our deepest destiny is fulfilled. And so I just invite you to recover. I invite you into a recovery process, and you can just say yes to it. And if you say yes, right, you take one step into your yes, and life's going to take 10 steps towards you, and you will be brought to counselors, to teachers, to coaches, to centers or churches, to books. You will be helped. The holy help will find you. And then your next year will be different than this year. And in 10 years, you're going to look back and go, oh my friggin' God, life has been awesome. I'm so grateful. So find yourself, find the yes in you, believe that it's possible. Take responsibility for yourself. Stop trying to please other people. They don't care. Everyone's in their own dream. Do you the best that you can do. All right, let us pray. Let us just pray together for a moment before we close. And the prayer is we're not begging a reluctant deity to do anything for you. We're just opening our hearts and our minds to align with the good that is always around us, the stream of well-being that is the very essence of our existence. And so join me. I'm going to close my eyes. You can close yours too if you like or not. We just take a breath. We take a breath that returns us to our sacred center, a breath that returns us to our authentic self, the self we know, because that self that you are is indestructible. Nothing you've ever experienced can destroy it. Nothing can ever harm it. That you, right in this moment, that part within you is whole and perfect and complete, was, is, and always will be. And so it was from that place that I know that I am connected to you, you to me, and us to everything and everyone. And that connection is undergirded by love and compassion, kindness, and peace. And so I just speak my word for and about every person who's here tonight on Sunday Night Alive, or any person who listens later, to simply accept, proclaim, and affirm that we are all destined. You are destined to recover from the past. You are destined to recover from the lies. You are destined to recover from the mistaken identity. You are destined to step into the more fuller, freer, authentic expression of yourself. It's in our DNA. We are designed to wake up. We are designed to awaken. And the very first step belongs to us. We have to want it, and we have to say yes to it. And so I know that each one of us can say yes, and that we can bring a seed of desire, and that we will be guided and guarded, maintained and sustained by the living presence that is everywhere, whose nature is love and whose method is law. And so I am grateful. I'm grateful to just accept this for us, to know that if we are here, we've been both blessed and a blessing to one another. And so for this and more, we give thanks, we let it be, and so it is. Amen. All right, so next week, our topic is stop hitting the snooze button. Sounds fun, doesn't it? And as always, if you have been fed tonight and you'd like to donate to my ministry, you can do that through PayPal at revdschubert@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, deniseschubert.com. So I love you. I appreciate you. I'm happy you joined me tonight. And I will see you next Sunday. Between now and then, be safe and be happy and be brave. Okay, bye.